I was working there part-time while I was still at journalism school, running scripts around the building. And then I worked around the newsroom and eventually on their late night news. And working in a newsroom, I learned everything that university doesn't teach you, what it's like to push into a story, what it's like to work with a team. There's nothing like a newsroom to sort of get your teeth into things and learn about the field.
Yeah, I agree. There is so much to learn in the newsroom. What are your thoughts now that Newshub is being closed down?
I think it's incredibly sad. I mean, on a personal level, I have a lot of colleagues and friends there that will not have a job come June, and that's incredibly sad. But New Zealand, it's now will only have one TV newsroom, and that's sort of a combination of embarrassing and bad for democracy. The one newsroom they have left on TV, it's government owned, and Newshub was always the sort of scrappy commercial competitor to that. And having that out of the market, New Zealanders won't be getting as much news. There won't be a station holding the other station to account. And it's just that thing. If you're in a marketplace where you've just got one network doing everything, you don't have anyone keeping anyone in check. And New Zealand is worse for it.
Do you think digital news outlets are expected to somewhat fill the gap once Newshub is gone?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, journalism as a whole is obviously going through some incredibly difficult times because the social media giants have changed the way people consume news and get news. I mean, a lot of people consume their news via someone on TikTok with the news behind them on a screen, So I certainly digital news will fill a certain hole, but I think even that is struggling now.
You mentioned some of your friends and former colleagues are affected by this news. Hundreds of people will lose their jobs there. Have you been in touch with some of these people and how are they feeling about it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of feelings. I think there's a general sense of shell shock from the whole thing. I think there was a general feeling that there was trouble on the horizon. Certain shows that were meant to be coming back had been pushed back. Things were feeling a little bit off, but no one was expecting to be called into an all-hands meeting and to be told that the entire newsroom is to be disestablished. So people are in shock, and I think people are just figuring out where they will go from here. New Zealand's a small place. There's only one other TV newsroom they can jump to, and it's not like they're hiring a load of people. So I think people are looking at journalism as a career and reassessing things. And I think a lot of people, it's kind of a reckoning and figuring out whether this is it's big picture stuff, whether this is a career that is viable or whether they need to pivot into something completely different.
Is there any chance of saving Newshub? Do you think it would have made a difference if it was owned by a New Zealand company?
I mean, to be honest, it felt like Discovery owning it was the best chance they had. I mean, it's always being tossed around between different owners, and Discovery, they put a lot of investment in and it felt incredibly positive. So I feel like it was their best bet as far as being a commercial entity. But, it's expensive to run a newsroom, and it's a country of 5 million people, and a lot of them aren't watching the 6 o'clock news anymore. And so it wasn't a viable thing to continue. People's habits are changing, and I think having it locally owned wouldn't have changed anything. I think there's very little chance that someone is going to come in and suddenly rescue Newshub. I would love that to happen. I think it's highly unlikely. And the language being used internally, I'd say that's not a viable option.
And amid the current climate, are there fears for the future of other smaller news outlets in New Zealand?
I think the whole of the media in New Zealand is slightly concerned at the moment. I mean, we've seen fringe sites popping up and increasing in popularity, and, politicians appearing on those networks. So I think things are following the patterns of social media, where people are getting their news from their own specific little echo chamber. And I think that is worrying for some of the bigger news websites that also rely on advertising and rely on clicks. A lot of those sites are chasing, the Google algorithm as opposed to necessarily putting out consistent great news. And I don't know how audiences are going to contend with that or feel about that. So, yeah, I think everyone is a little bit concerned at the moment. And not just in New Zealand, it's the world over. I have friends here in Los Angeles that have been let go from the LA Times. I've got friends that go from Vice, Washington Post. It's a worldwide thing. It's not a New Zealand thing only, unfortunately.
Well, any final words then on how you think the media landscape can be improved in New Zealand going forward?
Look, I'm down in the dumps about it at the moment. I think the media and journalism is in a really difficult place, and I think it's going to take some real pushback against the tech giants and what they're doing and how they are affecting the way people consume their news. X, Facebook, TikTok, all of them have a role in changing the way people are consuming news and what they're doing. And I think the power they have is alarming. And I don't know if we can ever get that power back. So the genie may be out of the bottle, so to speak. And it's not a very good genie.
A lot to think about and difficult times for the media in New Zealand. David, thank you so much for talking to us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.